So we're back with another community event. We're doing 7 deliveries to the Hanover Expo, which I think is a new destination. The Crone factory seems like it's a new depot as well. Has to be 200 kilometers or more, which is kind of annoying. But it's easier to do that in ETS2 than worrying about the distances with states in USA at least. So where are we? We're back in Prague? We're back in Prague. That's fine. I mean, our first job could be in, to Prague. Okay, so there's Veld. Okay. So we have to go from one of those places. It's tricky that there's 2 of them, because it says to go from the factory, but there's 2 of them. So I guess we should probably aim to do 2 different deliveries, just to be sure. External contracts. So what we need then is destination, and we want destination Hanover specifically to make sure that we're going, there we go, ITS, so it's a special thing. Forklifts is good, yeah, or just bottled water, we can do surprising. Forklifts is good, we'll do forklifts. Until you bought yourself an eye tracking, no idea if it works on older versions. If it does, you're gonna love await my submits. I'm not sure whether or not does eye tracking work the same as head tracking? Like, I don't know if it actually moves your head as you're playing. Maybe it does. I seem to remember someone else has done a submission using that before. Okay. Truck volume sounds way too loud.
Right.
Again, it's been a while since I've played this, and it seems that they've messed with the settings somehow. Let's just drop the master volume entirely. But otherwise, I guess maybe truck noise? We'll go with that. All those blind corners are gone if it works. Don't know if it'll be quite as game-breaking as you seem to think it will be.
Keep
but
left,
maybe. Hopefully it will
then
be.
Turn left.
I feel that's optimistic to think that it's going to eliminate blind corners from the map. All it'll do is it'll help you look like this a bit. But you can do that anyway, right? Or at least I can, with the twitch of a button. That's one advantage of using a controller, I guess, is I can do that. Not that I ever generally remember to. Right, so because we accepted the job already, we're limited to 90. I tell you what, though. This feels so much nicer compared to the ATS driving that I've been doing. This truck is so much more responsive. It's so nice. Like, the ATS ones are great, don't get me wrong, but it kind of feels like you're driving through soup half the time. And have the big nose just sticking out in front. I just wish that I had thought to... Well, I didn't know that I'd be going this far, I guess. I should really have taken the job that wouldn't have been driving all the way up here, because, yeah, this is annoying driving on a motorway at only 90.
Keep right.
It's also annoying that it's early in the morning, so you can't see a damn thing, and we like to appreciate the scenery. But never mind, this will be a pretty long delivery, so once we get started, then yeah, we should be able to see some of the scenery.
Exit right.
Especially once we get into Germany, where there's been all of the redone sections.
Turn right.
Now, if you really want to avoid blind corners and have much more visibility for racing, then you've got to play with VR. But something with a good viewing angle as well.
Take the second
I should try hooking the Oculus up to my computer and seeing what that looks like. I've still got my old Lenovo Explorer somewhere, which, it was okay. Like, I was impressed by the VR. I was just a bit put off by the narrow focusing angle. Like, you had to look directly at something.
Kind of on time.
So I couldn't just use my peripheral vision to check the mirrors or anything, which is kind of what I was hoping for. Okay, let's grab these forklifts and let's get going. Ding.
Ready to roll.
First, because you love the tech, and second, because you want to play with it. Oh yeah, fair enough. Don't want to kill the competition because you spent 200 euro. I don't think it'll make that much of a difference. So yeah, I appreciate your optimism, but I'm fairly sure it won't make that much of a difference. You can already crank the viewing angle really wide if you really want to. But that doesn't really make much of a difference.
Go straight.
I mean, it's on the same sort of par as, like, having a wheel versus having a controller, right? It's the... Sometimes certain control schemes do give you an advantage. That's just the way it is.
Exit now.
There's all sorts of contentions and different speedrunning scenes about what should and shouldn't be allowed. Like,
Exit right.
turbo controllers are often banned in speedruns of things that use traditional controllers because of the idea that it gives an advantage for button mashing over those that don't. It's not always a guarantee that it really makes much of a difference, though, must be said. But it's also an accessibility tool, and you don't want to make things worse for people just because of that, right? And the bottom line generally is that if it is something that is supported by the game, and it is something you can use in playing the game, then that is all that matters, because you are speedrunning the game. And, I mean, this game supports wheels, it supports eye tracking, it supports, yeah, all manner of things. Shifters, you know, if someone wanted to do the full simulation rig and that ended up being more responsive and they wrecked the leaderboards because of it, well, good on them. Like, can't ban that sort of thing. It's supported by the game. It's not an issue. You could theoretically, like, put something on the board to, like, filter if people felt that it was less competitive, but at the end of the day, it's equal opportunity in that everyone obviously has different means and can't necessarily afford things, but you're not prevented from investing in that if you really think it's worth it. I personally would struggle to consider investing in expensive tech just for the sake of a digital leaderboard to be not really worth it, but different people have different priorities. These game noises are still really noisy. Or do I just have my volume turned up way too loud? Maybe. I didn't think I did, but... I know I'm in the wrong lane for turning. But I'm also slow because I'm hauling a big trailer, so I figure that... Okay, can you go ahead, please? I really thought you were going to be turning. And then you just stopped in my turning arm. Cool, thanks, car. Oh dear. I figured I'd be able to get ahead of the cars or slotting behind them. Anyway, 7 hours and 58 minutes, that's 8 in-game hours, is approximately 25 minutes in real time. Which works out quite well, because then I'll need to take a short break at
At the
that point.
roundabout, take the first exit. Exit now.
We'll see whether or not we can do... We don't have to do perfect deliveries, but we'll see whether or not we can do things without taking too much damage, because we are only going 90, not 160, so we don't have much excuse for taking damage, other than just impatience and not paying attention. Does spending 200 euro make you better or not is really what matters in the end? Not really. That's the thing. Yeah, Dirk plays with his mouse. Correct. Yeah, that's right. A lot of it comes more down to the affinity that someone has with their particular control scheme than anything else. So I personally find that using a controller, like a gamepad controller, is limiting because, like, my steering is this. And it does not let me, like, I'm going full left, full right, and it doesn't let me turn the wheel very quickly. And I've looked online and about all the various options that you have in the game, and none of them make a damn bit of difference. Whereas at least with the mouse, you seem to be able to just flick it to the side, and it's very responsive. With a wheel, you literally just slam the wheel around, and it should translate directly to in the game, so that means you can basically hit full lock on your steering. Whereas I have to hold it to the left for it to keep turning, and it turns really slowly once it gets to that point. It's kind of annoying. But for casual play, I find it much, much better. And for speedruns, I don't find it that limiting. You know, I've been able to be up there and, I don't know, compete for top 5 at least, you know, and I'm happy with that. I don't have enough room on my desk to accommodate a wheel. I also kind of just don't want to be using a wheel. I especially wouldn't want to be using the pedals. I would find that annoying. I'm much happier to just use triggers and buttons more than anything else. But in a lot of games, it's a case of it's a pretty moot point a lot of the time, whether or not control scheme makes a huge difference or not. Mouse is better if you have to do very fast chain directions, yeah, but you lack precision with brakes, exactly. So, I guess you could, like, have right click on the brake or something. But that's why I quite like the triggers on a controller, so I've got, like, graduated things. It's not just on or off. I forget what the term is now. I guess it's analog versus digital, I guess, is the difference. So I can gradually accelerate, not that you want to, you just jam it into full. But you can feather the brakes a bit better, which is nice. Tend not to lock up quite so badly. But I'm not sure quite how well it really translates into the game, because you do seem to, like, the truck will just shut off quite frequently when you hard brake, which isn't ideal, having to restart it again to be able to accelerate out of a corner. But again, you're talking seconds, and that's generally not what it comes down to for my level of competition. I don't practice nearly enough for that to really matter. The absolute biggest contributor to speedrunning performance is the amount of repetition that you can do in practicing a run. That is hands down the biggest thing. People trying to find different ways that they can use controls to their advantage. It's a drop in the bucket compared to just practice. Showing your wheel and pedals. Yeah, those are always fun. I have one for showing my control scheme. It's just a display thing that just gets picked up by OBS. Nothing fancy. I tend not to have it on. I don't load up the program when I'm just casually driving. But for speedruns, I've found it kind of fun, because I tend not, especially if I'm not doing face cam and microphone with the run, then it's just a nice little extra bit to show that, hey, I'm doing these inputs. And it just sits over the steering wheel, which no one really cares about anyway, so... I think I've still got my high beams on, don't I? They can go off. Not that it matters. Literally makes no difference. We can now see things again, which is nice. Lost track of actually where we are at the moment. Don't know if we've crossed into the border just yet. What does the sign say? Frankfurt, Leipzig, and Schmidt. Yeah, I think we're in Germany now. We should go into scenic mode, in fact. Go. We should also probably get out of the fast lane, because we're just going to be pissing off a bunch of drivers. Not that I really care about what the AI thinks of my driving. But we get to appreciate the scenery a little bit more from this view. What even is my paint job though? It's the Iberian Lynx, I think, isn't it? Yeah, after the Iberia DLC. Nice. My big Volvo. I miss my Volvo when I'm playing ATS. So is it really hard to imagine that you could just import a European truck and, you know, either get it converted or just drive on left-hand drive in America? Oh no, because it's not even a conversion, I'm thinking of the UK. Yeah, it's the same side of the road and everything. There's no conversion. I would just much prefer to... I don't know if there's laws in America about the fact that you need to have a long nose or something, but the cab-over design is just so much nicer. Good way to see bad braking acceleration phase as well. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. It allows you to actually check what your inputs are. See, ooh, yeah, I was really flaky on the braking at that point. I mean, my acceleration is generally hitting the button to re-engage cruise control. But, you know. And my braking's always a bit shoddy. But that ties into the repetition side of things as well, right? Like, even without using any sort of plugin to help you improve, the more times you do something, the more cognizant you should be of your performance in doing it, and realizing that, hey, this is affecting my performance in these sections. Needing to brake cleaner, things like that, corner tighter, whatever it happens to be, you're just going to get a more of an affinity for that over time. But the use of some sort of like tracking tool can be really handy because it allows you to visualize it, and you might not realize that you're actually making mistakes, and you want to capture that before you start reinforcing bad behavior. Like, I know when I'm playing Subnautica that I have a really bad habit of like bouncing myself along.
Turn right.
I should have gone into first person view for this. Doesn't matter. I did it. We're fine. Yeah, when you're zooming along with the Sea Glide, it's easy to kind of tilt your view towards the seafloor and then bounce along using spacebar, and that's actually really inefficient. I'm fairly sure your movement just gets really spiky, but I can't help myself. And again, it's one of those things of, am I competitive enough to really care? No. Like, I should definitely be using a different control scheme in this, but I can't be bothered. Give me a sec. Also, the Google Doc you have helped you understand we need to improve a lot. Yeah, that's right. If you're really competitive directly with other people, then of course you can analyze their performance as well.
Keep right.
I've very rarely gone to that extent when it comes to things like that. My main competition for speedrunning is myself. I am not that bothered. I will certainly look to see what other people are doing. If it's a case of, hey, they're going this way instead of that, that makes much more sense. I should do that. Yeah, that's definitely something I will do, but then I will just do it myself in my own way more than anything else. Yeah, doing direct comparisons against like splits and stuff like that, I'm less bothered about. That seems like a lot of hard work for something. It depends on your amount of free time, of course, and I don't have much of that. Otherwise I would play games a lot more and be able to improve by repetition. But also that gets very stressful. You're then comparing yourself against other people to such an extent, and I personally find that very unhealthy. If you find that sort of thing motivates you, then great. I personally find it just adds stress, and I prefer not to play games to be stressed. Obviously, speedrunning is a stressful endeavor. You are playing a game fast, you're having to do precise inputs. It can be very frustrating at times, but it should also be enjoyable. And I'm not so worried about digging into the minutiae of performance just for the sake of it. It's more a case of, are there really big differences in terms of routing is the main one, obviously. Routing, or just general lane strategies and things like that. Because otherwise that's where you burn yourself out. There's been cases I've seen plenty of times of runners getting very disillusioned because they're just comparing themselves against some of the other top runners, and will just be getting very frustrated about not being able to improve to that extent, and it can just burn you out, and you end up just dropping out of the game because it's not fun anymore. So, a visualization of comparing yourself, yeah, and well, fair enough, exactly. And that's the thing, is if you really enjoy that sort of thing, and I know some other people really enjoy digging into the data and, yeah, data-driven development, basically, and that's fair enough. That's, yeah, it's got to be whatever works for you, right? It's especially good if it does help you find really good improvements. It's like, okay, yeah, looking at this, I can see that I'm making these mistakes, and I can easily improve those points. It's like the recent videos Markiplier was doing of playing Mavis Beacon doing typing, and he just had basically a bit of a crisis where he realized how inefficient he was about doing his typing, and how many mistakes he makes, even though he was typing quickly but making lots of mistakes, which always means you're having to spend time correcting. And it was a revelation for him when he just did footage of his keystrokes and what he was actually doing. That was quite an amusing couple of videos. I mean, after that, I have to admit, I was thinking about my own typing. It's like, what do I do that's really bad? Because I'm sure I do plenty. I mean, I type all day as a developer. And part of the problem there is that I'm typing words that aren't even English. Or any normal language. And typing like abbreviated variable names and things like that. So comparing that to normal metrics of how you should type based on normal phrases is a bit difficult. I certainly don't use the home row anymore. I've never touch typed. I will generally look at the keyboard more than I look at the screen when I'm typing. The whole idea behind touch typing also comes from transcribing more than anything else. It's a case of you are looking at a document that you are then having to type out. And that's not what 90% of people do when they are using a computer. You're usually typing something from your head into a computer, which means that you can be looking at the keyboard instead. Which means you can make mistakes and correct them very quickly. Yeah, like competition and stuff, yeah. You hope it doesn't bother. I doubt it does, yeah. Yeah, it's full access to the document as well. Yeah, and that's the other important thing. But it's not important. Like, there is certainly no obligation to, if you are using just a document or anything like that to track time differentials. I mean, the data is all there for everyone to access. You can look at the footage of someone else's run and derive their splits from that in order to do those data comparisons. But it is a very generous thing to make that open so that other people can always refer to it as well. So that's what I like about having a good community, is that spirit of actually sharing, and it's a case of making the run better. And that's an important thing. But at the same time, it is a competitive endeavour, so there is also literally nothing wrong with holding things close to your chest until you actually exercise them in a run, and then it's out there for the world to see, right?
Keep
Yeah, there's
right.
nothing wrong with doing
Then
that.
exit right. Exit right.
About the only time that it is crucially important to kind of share, not necessarily share information, but at least be open about your plans for a speedrun. If you think you've got a new strategy, but you think it might not be within the rules. Like, if you discover behavior in the game that you're exploiting that might be not kosher. Especially if you're doing like a glitchless run. It's a case of, well, I'm trying to use this, kind of exploit this game behavior, but I'm concerned it might be considered a glitch. You should always ask the community first before just trying to use it in a run. Because otherwise your run might just then end up being banned. You might put 10 hours into refining the strategy only to find that, no, that's considered a glitch. Or, no, that, even in glitched run, it's a case of, no, that's actually hardware based and others can't replicate this, so therefore we can't allow it. So that's the sort of thing that if it's brand new, completely new, then you do have to be mindful of that. But if it's just, you know, finding new ways of employing existing strategies, then, you know, if you discover some fancy new way of doing things, then by all means just do it and then show it off. And then other people can go, ooh, that looks fun. Wouldn't have done if you weren't going to share it. That's very generous of you. Chugga, chugga, chugga. We're getting there. We're almost there.
Keep right.
Just a couple
And then
more
exit
minutes
right.
on this one. So all of this is brand new. To me, at least. Maybe not brand
Exit
new,
right.
but I've not come this way since they've done up this part of Germany again. I really hope that they move their focus to other... I mean, they've done Austria as well since, which is good. They really need to revamp the UK. I don't know if they're holding off on that for any reason in particular. Maybe they want to do another DLC or something on that. I wouldn't object to that if they want to do a British Isles DLC and add in like the north of Scotland, Ireland, Isle of Man. That would be really cool. Maybe a couple of the Channel Islands. That would be really fun. But at minimum it would be nice to have the roads in the UK updated, because it's rough. Those intersections are so skinny. I mean, any speedruns would probably still be run on the old version regardless, but it would be nice to have a new lick of paint given over the area. Okay, let's get to this convention center.
Keep right. And then turn right.
Oh, okay. That's my bad. I should have kept going on that lane and then cut in right at the exit.
Turn right.
And that's the danger of driving on the shoulder, ladies and gentlemen.
Keep right. And then turn right. Turn right.
All these nice big pedestrian overbridges.
Keep left. And then
There
turn
needs to be
left.
more of those around here. Constantly see things about, they're wanting to upgrade
Turn left.
pedestrian crossings at such and such. It's like, well, why don't you just have an overpass, have a ramp with a bridge, because then there is no reason why the pedestrians need to cross the road at all. You just completely remove that element. What an idea. You know, they're obsessed about putting in bike lanes to separate cyclists from mainstream traffic. So, well, can you think about putting separation from pedestrians in traffic too, please? You're very nice.
Get ready to turn right.
But it's more expensive, so it doesn't get done.
Turn right.
Nice complex here.
Keep left.
And here's our destination. Driving UK is really not fun. Yeah, amount of time a lane becomes an exit. Yup. I mean, from a road design point of view, I have nothing against
Finally, we are here.
exit-only lanes being a thing, so long as there is a good shoulder to run onto as well. Then it's not too big a deal. It's more just that all of the intersections of at motorways are just those template intersections where they're all really skinny. Is this the right slot, or is it the next one over? Ah, I think it's the next one over. I have a mod on when playing casually that removes the big highlighted area. And unfortunately that means that it's then harder to see where I'm supposed to park. It puts a couple of little markers up instead. And I didn't see them as I drove past. Is it this bit? Yeah. Or is it just not working properly with this? No, they are there. Because it shouldn't matter in terms of added places. Yeah, there it is. Erp. And it's exactly this situation that I was really hoping VR would be good for. But again, it's just that really narrow focus view that you have to like really turn your head to look at your mirrors still instead of being able to just like glance out the corner of your eye. Which is why I use the virtual mirrors. 1 out of 7. Excellent.